100%. There we go. Sorry about that, everybody. Welcome to Q&A Friday. I am 3 hours and 14 minutes late because of committee meetings. We are in the middle of NFPA, the National Electrical Code Task Group meetings. So if you're not familiar, the National Electrical Codes developed every 3 years. We are in the middle of, hey, Santiago, good to see you. Good to see you. Today I was supposed to go, I tried to go live on Fridays at 12, but wasn't able to make it. So I don't even know what I'm going to talk about. I know it's going to be a Q&A Friday, so we're going to call up some questions that I've gotten in on YouTube. And I do have a couple questions I know came in on my email. So we're going to take care of those. And I've got some new spectacles. Hey, Santiago Arias Guzman. So I realized that I am tired of doing this all the time and trying to get further. My arms aren't long enough anymore to get the distance that I need. And when I do get the distance that I need, I can't read the fine print. So when you're reading the code book or a magazine or a book or even my phone, look at this. I think Walmart or Walgreens. I can't remember where I got them, but I'm at 1.25. So that's the way that cookie crumbles. All right, so let's do this. Let's get this done. No more of just shooting the bull. This is Friday. We're getting ready for a weekend. And I'm going to get over to my YouTube studio and take a look at comments and questions. Yesterday, let's just give you a note. Really, what I want to talk about first, before I get into those, I was at our Pittsburgh Experience Center on Wednesday. Today's Friday, so Wednesday, 2 days ago. And I was up there with Dan Carnavale, and he showed me a cool new product. We went live on this channel very short period of time. I had never gone live straight from my cell phone before, so it was a little bouncy. And, hey, that's what the bleeding edge is all about. It's about doing things, getting out of your comfort zone, and stretching your capabilities, and that's how we grow. So we had some discussion, and he showed me up there these new IR windows that are basically in the side of the iCloud. I got to go up to my iCloud account so that I can show you those pictures. So I thought it was really cool that we are now able to put these IR windows in the trough. And there were other examples of how we're implementing in these infrared windows on equipment to provide the electrical worker with a way to do your infrared, your IR scanning. I just got to do my authentication. Do an IR scan that lets you get that done without exposing the electrical worker to exposed energized conductors. I mean, we're going to do these infrared scanning while the equipment is energized, and you just don't want the electrical worker to be working these things hot. So what I'm going to show you, if I can, I'm going to show you something really cool that I think was really cool. And you'll notice in this picture, so this window right here, you'll notice the breakers. This is a switchboard, right? And there's troughs on either side. They implemented and installed these IR windows. When you open this door, it opens and gives you visibility to all of those terminations. I mean, think about that. And it doesn't ruin it. So if it's an arc resistant piece of equipment, you don't lose the arc resistant nature of that equipment. I'm just there you go. There's a nice. This is a I think it's a better shot. How do I do this? That's a share. That's a heart. There we go. Look at that. So when you open this door here, you're able to see those, and you can do your IR scans on all of your terminations that you made inside that equipment. Now, why is that important? NFPA 70E, and everybody should have NFPA 70E at ready access. And I'm breaking my own rule. 70E is going to tell us about condition of maintenance. So I need to understand the condition of maintenance, and I should be doing IR scans. And here's another point. Somebody had asked me a question about the, they asked me a question about when a fault occurs in the power distribution system, about the terminations, about the rest of the system. You know, we look at the overcurrent device that is serving that fault. And we want to make sure that, you know, if it was a circuit breaker, understanding the magnitude of current that passed through it, you're going to want to look at the overcurrent device. If you were a very high short circuit current, you're going to want to do some inspections on that. NEMA AB4 helps us with that dialogue to take a look at the overcurrent device and make sure that it's you don't lose the integrity, that it's going to perform the same way, you know, the way you expect it the next time. But the other question that came up, which I think is valid, depending upon how long it took to trip, you're stressing the entire power distribution system. Think about every termination, every lug, the conductors in those that are landed on those terminations are going to be seeing fault current. They're going to let fault current pass through them. If I have a circuit breaker that has an intentional delay so that a downstream device clears that fault, depending upon the amount of time, I have to make sure that my system maintains its integrity. We think about things like short circuit current ratings on equipment. So somebody asked me about the upstream equipment. Is there any concern in the upstream equipment? And the more I thought about it, I thought, you know, I'd like to say no, because the downstream overcurrent device is clearing the fault. But in reality, we really should look at our single line diagram, and you've heard me say it over and over and over again. You've got to have a single line diagram, an accurate single line diagram, so that you can use that to establish electrically safe work conditions, so we can do our short circuit studies, our coordination studies, all that jazz. Now, how about using that one line diagram so that you can trace wherever your fault was in the power system, where was your current flow? And if you have equipment like this, if you've got these windows, you can take a look. One of the methods to determine the integrity of your terminations is to look for hotspots, and doing an IR scan on those overcurrent devices in the equipment that this fault current passed through gives you a level of assurance. A level. It's not, don't take it to the bank, but it is at least something you've done to say, yep, I feel like my power distribution system's integrity wasn't compromised because of the stress that I just placed it under. So think about that, and think about what are we doing in regard to these IR scans. And one of the questions that I got the glasses. One of the questions that I got was a recommendation on an infrared camera. So I had somebody ask, hey, do we have a recommendation for what IR camera to use? And back when I haven't bought an IR camera, so I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is to, I can't make a recommendation on an IR camera if I'm not buying them and I'm not using them myself. But this individual and a few others have told me that the cost of IR cameras have come down considerably. Now, I know we purchased a few FLIRs in our past, and then Dan Carnevale had shared a link to Amazon or one of these locations that said, "Hey, here's the model that we just recently purchased up in our experience center," and I think it was only like $1,500. There are a lot of different solutions, I believe, and he made the statement, and I haven't looked it up yet, but he said that there are solutions that you can put on your phone, and again, I don't know if those I don't know the capabilities of any of those devices, and I'm not advocating any of these devices. What I'm saying, my message to you is, if you don't have an IR scanner, something that looks at heat in power distribution equipment, take a look. And if you haven't looked recently, I know years ago it was like $30,000 for a good IR camera. I believe you may be pleasantly surprised at the affordability of an IR scan device today as opposed to 10 years ago. So I know when Dan sent a link to, it was a catalog number on one of these, I don't know, it was an online retailer. I can't remember if it was Amazon, if it was, definitely was, probably wasn't Walmart. But is one of those retailers had, and he was just using that link as a, hey, here's the model that we had. And I looked at the price, and it was a new device. It wasn't like used, being refurbished or sold as new old stock or something like that. It was only $1,500, and I think there's a lot you can do with technology today. So get out there, take a look at what's on the market. Don't let your previous experience judge your thoughts in that regard. So IR camera, I want to raise your awareness on the IR camera, and I want to raise your awareness that there are, oh, look at this. I mean, this is a residential panel board, and it's probably an overkill for a resi panel board, but look at that dead front. It's got IR scanning right on either side of, you got the bus that you can get a picture of, and you got the lugs where you're landing the wires where you can get a picture of. I mean, it's phenomenal what they're doing. And those little honeycombs, behind that honeycomb is a plexiglass. And I don't have to worry about an arc flash issue in a residential application. And just, I am just very surprised at what you can and where you can implement this equipment and provide. And again, it provides a lot of value for your electrical worker. I'm not going to say it's required by 70E to have those windows. It's not required by the National Electrical Code to have those windows. When you're putting those in, you're going above and beyond. But the reason we do that is directly for our electrical worker. We've got to keep those people in safe. We have too many of them going home. And FLIR, not FLIR, not door. I have the door. Oh, I have the FLIR 700, which is the size of an iPhone. I was able to see conductors sparking before ever opening up the equipment. Exactly. So that's what I'm saying, Eugene. There is so many. There's a lot of technologies that, for example, I'll give you. I was just up at the Experience Center, and Dan Carnevale told me about this, or actually, I saw this sitting on his desk. And this is it's a drone. It's a Mavic Air 2. And I'll tell you what, I brought it back because I wanted to get some, my wheels are going, right? So you're going to start probably seeing some drone footage on my site as I take a look at maybe some installations, whether it be a residential or commercial, whatever it is. My wheels are going with regard to this drone, but the last time I even tried to fly a drone was, I don't know how many years ago, but I couldn't control it. And the controller was, I was, and it wasn't even mine. Somebody just let me, they said, here, you fly it. And boom, I flew it into a wall. Right. So thank God I didn't break the doggone thing, but, it was very hard to fly. And my perception of a drone was forget it. I don't have the dexterity in my fingers to be able to do that. But I'll tell you what, the technology in the drone world has increased considerably. And then so I brought this to my house, and I've always been questioning my gutters, and I'm thinking, man, I'd love to look in those gutters, but man, I don't want to throw a ladder up on my building, my house 3 stories up, and be looking at gutters. Especially, I'm going to be fumbling around with my new spectacles and trying to see what I'm looking at. That drone goes right over top. So you can use these for inspections. You can use these for your own job site reviews, for progress, for safety inspections. I think there are a lot of opportunities for technology today. So, and then the Mavic Air 2, which is great video quality, impeccable video quality, and I think it's like $700 or $800 online. You're like $750 or $760 or whatever it is. So relatively inexpensive, and if you can leverage it to avoid getting up on a ladder, leverage it to avoid getting up on scissor lifts and all of those other things, I think that that technology also has a good place in safety on the job site. So, and I'd love to hear your ideas on that one as well. And the one that I'm looking at here is a Mavic Air 2, MAVIC Air 2. And I've now got my FAA. I got my FAA. What is it? I've got a license now. What do they call it? I went out on the FAA site and I paid, and I have my Federal Aviation Administration Small UAS certificate of registration, and I have a registration number. I have an expiration date, and I've got some rules I got to follow whenever I use that drone, and I'm going to keep it right here in my wallet, and I'm legal. So, and I'm trained, so I'm dangerous. But think about these new technologies and take a look at the new FLIRs and other solutions that are very cost effective that are on the market. Okay, so it's usually via drawing if it's meant at all. Okay, so I'm just looking back. I gotta look and see. While I'm looking here, another question that came in: fine stranded conductors. So I had a call about whether or not one of our terminal blocks. Steve Fromming, how come it says? Oh, Steve, I'm broadcasting on 5 or 6 different channels. So the Santiago and Guzman are on LinkedIn. You're on YouTube, and I just went live, so it's 3 o'clock. What, 3:15? I didn't do any advertising. The whole goal of this is to get this out there, and it'll be out there for anybody to review in the future. So I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, and I'm on YouTube. So, and that's why I am repeating some of the questions, because if you're on YouTube, you're not seeing the LinkedIn comments or the Facebook comments, and vice versa. So I will reiterate I'll tell you how many channels I'm on. I've got 1, 2, 3 Facebook pages I'm broadcasting to right now. Twitter I'm broadcasting to, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different channels that I'm out there on. So leave no stone unturned, Mr. Fromming. Fine stranded. Terminations are very, very important. And think about the challenge that a fine stranded conductor has for the termination, whether it be an overcurrent protected device or a terminal block. And it depending upon how the termination is made, what you're going to want to make sure is if you are using a terminal block, if you're using a fuse block, if you're using a circuit breaker, whatever it is you're landing a conductor on, if you're landing a fine stranded conductor on a lug, make sure that that equipment is listed for fine stranded equipment. So you've just got to be careful in the listing. And so the phone call that I took the other day was in regard to one of our fuse blocks and whether or not they could terminate fine stranded conductors on that terminal block. And we found that some are listed for fine stranded, some may not be listed for fine stranded. So you got to look at the literature, and when in doubt, call the manufacturer, and whoever the manufacturer is should be able to help you. And if they can't help you, you might want to switch something. All right, 3 10K rated Eaton panel boards. Okay, Doug, I missed another live stream. I recently saw an arc flash label on a 12 kV piece of gear that said 16 calories at 30 inches with 37-foot arc flash boundary. Wow. Either they calculated by some crazy math that shrapnel might only travel that far, or someone just ran the program and printed the label like an engineer might do. I recently saw an arc flash label on a 12 kV switchgear that said 16 calories and 37-foot 6-inch arc flash boundary. So his issue is the calories don't seem to match the arc flash boundary. So remember, the calories per centimeter squared is at 30-inch working distance. I would agree with you, JW, that 16 calories at 30 inches is probably what are we looking for when we think about the arc flash boundary? So arc flash boundary, if we go to 70E, let's take a look at what the arc rating, arc flash, boundary, arc flash. So here's the definition of an arc flash boundary in 70E. When an arc flash hazard exists, an approach limit from an arc source at which incident energy equals 1.2 calories per centimeter squared. So here's what happens. We do typically two calculations. One at the working distance. In this case, it was 30 inches. And what JW is saying, at 30 inches, he had 16 calories per centimeter squared. Now, what we'll do to determine the arc flash boundary is keep increasing that distance until you get an incident energy of 1.2 calories per centimeter squared. And the reason the 1.2, there's an informational note that says, according to the Stoll skin burn injury model, the onset of a second-degree burn on unprotected skin is likely to occur at an exposure of 1.2 calories per centimeter squared for 1 second. So that's where the 1.2 comes from. So what we do is we just keep increasing the distance until we get to 1.2, and whatever that distance is, that's your arc flash boundary. And it would be hard to believe that at 16 calories at 30 inches, that it takes you another 37 feet or 36 foot, no, 35 foot, whatever, 37 foot 6 inches minus 30 inches to get to 1.2 calories. So I tend to agree with you, JW, that's a challenge. Oh, he says, I fail to understand why Chapter 9, Table 10. Chapter 9, Table 10. Let's take a look at Chapter 9, Table 10. Not Annex. So here's a big mistake I used to make. I would go to the back of the book and I would see Annex C, Charlie, says tables. And I would go straight to that and I'd say, I can't find Table 9. Don't go to Annex C. You got to go to Chapter 9. And he says Table 10. Hey, I don't know about you, but it's been a long day. And it is only 3:38. Table 10 says conductor stranding. Ooh, we were just talking about fine stranded conductors. Let me show you something. So this says, I fail to understand why Chapter 9, Table 10, Chapter 9, Table 10, conductor stranding lists uncoated copper wires, number of strands, uncoated copper wires. Uncoated copper wires. The title of this is Conductor Stranding, and it has number of strands. I don't see uncoated copper wires. You might be thinking table. Let's see. Lists uncoated copper wires, then has a note 1 that says that values are based on type RHH wires. He's not talking about table 10. He's talking about table 9. Nihad El Sharif in the house. Nihad, not your fault, buddy. Oh, crud. Yes, I was on a I just got off of an IAEI meeting and just finished a heated Task Group 2 meeting on AFCIs. I missed it, buddy. I missed it. Well, I was on an IAEI call, and right after that, I went live here. So it's 3:15. I don't know when. Geez, I gotta talk to John about that one because I missed it. Anyway, but I was on a call, so anyhow. And you know what? It's better off I wasn't there because my blood pressure would go up. All right, so table 9 says alternating current resistance and reactance for 600 volt cables, 3-phase, 3 single conductors in conduit. And it has, this is your ohms per 1,000 foot. Yeah, let's catch up later. Is the panel 2 meeting completely over, Nihad, or are you double dipping here? I just want to know. I want to know how much I missed because I just got off the other call at 3:15. So, alternating current resistance and reactance for 600 volt cables, 3 single conductors in conduit. My reactance for all wires, PVC, they have an alternating current resistance for uncoated copper wires. And then there's a note, he says a note 1. Does he say note 1? Saying the values are based. Note 1 says these values are based on the following constants. I gotta look and see if there's any little annotation. I don't think so. I believe note 1 applies to the whole table. Type RHH wires in Class B stranding in cradle configuration. Wire conductivities are 100% IACS copper and 61% aluminum, and aluminum conduit is 45%. Capacitive reactance is ignored since it is negligible at these voltages. These resistance values are valid only at 75 degrees C and for the parameters as given, but the representative for 600 volt wire types operating at 60 hertz. Well, UL type RHH wires. Let's take a look. RHH wires, 310. We got to go to 310. That's a good question. That is a good question. RHH in table 310.4a. RHH is thermoset, 90 degrees C, dry and damp locations, moisture resistant, flame retardant. Doesn't say anything about the insulation. Doesn't say if it's paper, if it's thermoplastic, RHH. But we know it's got an insulation on it. Well, good. I'm glad it was over at 3 because then I missed it. And I don't feel guilty because I was on another call. Hey there, what are you up to, Mr. Sparky in charge? So we're talking about RHH wire, which is thermoset. And the question is why Does table 9 lists uncoated copper wires, then has a note saying the values are based on RHH wires. That is a very valid and RHH wire, RHH. That's a good. RHH cables are similar to RHW. While only one letter is different, the respective codes, keep in mind that we talk about above, we are already covered. The R stands for a rubber insulation, and the HH details the heat resistance. So we know we're dealing with a rubber insulation, yet the bottom of the table says RHH wire, but the table says uncoated. You know what I say to that, JW? I look forward to your public input. I think that I'm going to write that one down. I'm going to do some homework on that one. YRHH in note 1 for table 9. That's a good question. I'm going to do some homework and see what I can learn. Fail to understand. Where the transformer is customer owned, is there any disconnecting means or medium voltage switchgear which is SUSE rated over 1,000 volts? Hey, Seuss. Yes, we make medium voltage equipment that is service entrance rated. So, yes, you can get that equipment. I really want to know which brands of condensers are no good. No way. Lala, China, 100% of LEDs. They're liar. Okay. Don't seem to be really. Show t-shirts. What's the difference? Okay. So, dang, I missed another live. Just an FYI was 310K. Thank you. Got a lot of the scanned copy from your link. Great. Do any of the circuit breakers Eaton makes still have any instructions that say to use rope to bind wires together in high fault current applications? He saw an 800 amp 65K rated breaker one time that said this was required if it is used at a 65K application. I think I shared the information on that one. So there is documentation on when to use those ropes. So hopefully, and that might be an old question. So, Mr. Santiago, equipment that can be used in other countries that use the British standard 7671, since they operate at 220, 380, and 50 hertz, can we use our 277 480 volt equipment? I believe the only difference is an RCD, residual current device, which our version of a GFCI trips at a higher number. And is there a shortage of equipment? So here's what I think about that. When you're in another country, it's just like this country. Whatever equipment you're using is going to have to be approved by somebody. Even if technically there's no reason you can't use that equipment in that application, if it's not listed appropriately, the authority having jurisdiction has the jurisdiction to say no. Now, having said that, the equipment that we're using would have to be looked at through the eyes of the British standard 7671. Whether it be 50 hertz or the 220, 380, you can say the voltage is less than ours, but there's probably a lot more that 7671 brings to the table. And I don't have those details, but this is a good, I'll tell you what this is a good question about. What are the differences between a NEMA type piece of equipment and a non-NEMA type of piece of equipment. So the British standard, I now have to pull this one, 7671. I'll do some more homework on that. I know some people that will know a lot about that standard, but in our UL standards, what you will see is like marking requirements. So you got to think about the integrity of the installation and what everybody's looking at, and say, look, you're going to have an inspector. They're going to be looking for maybe some voltage labels, and I'm not sure about the installation requirements in those other countries, what they require. So you got to just think about it from the big picture perspective. Eugene, we probably could say, look, yeah, that equipment, I could list it to that other standard. It's not a listing, right? It's an ISA evaluation. It's a self-certification. Basically, I could say I can review it, and then I could seek the proper paperwork to be able to use that equipment over there. But I would really have to go into detail on 7671 to just take a look and see what are all the different requirements. And it could be just marking requirements. You could say, look, technically, I can handle the voltages and the currents and the withstands and all this other good stuff. And I'm going to bring a tank to a gunfight, but there might be other labeling requirements that are in accordance with their installation requirements. So you got to think about the bigger picture. I right off the top of my head, I can't think of, or off the top of my head, I can say from a voltage perspective, got you covered. But all the other little details, you might have those. Oh, if you used, no, yeah. So if you use 277 480 volt equipment, you can use it at a less voltage. It's like a 600 amp or 600 volt breaker. I can use 600 volt breaker on a 240 volt system. No problems. I can't use a 600 volt breaker on a 4160 application. I can't use a 240 volt breaker on a 600 volt application, but I can always go down in those ratings. And I've had people ask me questions about a three-phase panel board, 600 volt three-phase panel board, say, can I use that in a 120, 240 volt application? Sure. Yeah. I mean, you're not exceeding any of the ratings. The overcurrent device will still respond. Remember, a circuit breaker it's voltage dependent in regard to making sure you don't exceed its rated voltage. But all I'm really worried about is how much current is passing through that, and I'm going to act to open it. The reason the voltage comes into play is because I want to make sure that when I'm in the process of opening it, my voltages across the different components within those devices aren't greater than what I'm planning for, and then I accidentally achieve an unintended rapid disassembly. If you think about a piece of equipment, the higher the voltages, the larger the spacing is needed between components. So if I'm rated for 600 volts, that means my spacing in between the terminals and in between terminal blocks, in between the hot conductor and the back pan and whatnot of the equipment, my spacings are appropriate for 600 volts. But if I am at a lower voltage, my spacings don't have those same requirements. My spacings can be closer. So from a voltage perspective, I'm fine. I can interrupt the current, don't have a worry there. I don't have a worry about my creepage and clearances. So, hopefully that helps. The key thing on an overcurrent device, the voltage issue is not because of the current that I'm interrupting. It's because of when I'm separating my contacts, the voltages that I'm drawing. JW says the NEC does require that when circuit breakers are of a certain size, documentation shall be available to those authorized as to the location of the breakers. That's usually met via a drawing, if it's met at all. Putting boxes around equipment on one lines is important. Otherwise, no way to tell if a switch. Oh, so what he's getting to. Hey, Nikolai Tesla. So what he's getting to, and he's commenting on my Eaton Tech Talk arc flash ideas. And I mentioned about moving the main overcurrent device and whatnot into its own enclosure. And if you recall, I drew a little one-line diagram. And whenever I do my diagrams, I draw little dashed lines to represent the enclosure. And he's pointing out that it is important to, on a one-line diagram, to designate those little dashed lines so that you know what is a part of a piece of equipment and what is not a part of a piece of equipment. You may say, I don't need to draw my little dashed lines because my main breaker is this far away as opposed to that far away from the bus. But the person who's reviewing the one-line diagram may not realize that that breaker is not in the same enclosure, and it's really a main lug only enclosure and not a enclosure with a main breaker in it. So he's just pointing out that drawing those lines around there, and that you also need the one-line diagram to identify the location of certain breakers. Like 1200 amp breaker 24087 says I have to identify the location of those of that breaker and the technologies that I'm providing, and that's going to be done using the single line diagram. So thanks for joining us, Nikolai. All right, so Robert, additional information knowledge, thank you. And those are my live at PSEC, and I call it live at spec. We were just up at PSEC, and we had a pretty good time up there. All right, so let me go back to my little book. How about this one? Can I serve two loads from the same circuit breaker? What do you guys think of that one? I have one circuit breaker, two conductors, two branch circuits off of one circuit breaker. Now, one of the things that I, outside of going to Article 240 for overcurrent protection, you've got to think about what are the capabilities of the overcurrent device. So I am going to, I'm just going to see if I can call the spec sheet up for, say, our BR circuit breaker. Because here's the first thing you got to answer. Can I put two conductors under the same lug, Nick? So, Mr. Tesla, I got to think, right, and you're right, it depends on the current. But here's the thing, I don't think it depends on the current either. So, but you're going down the road that I would go down as well. So my thought process was, if I have, say, a 20 amp circuit breaker and I have two conductors that are rated 20 amps, so I'm using a number 12. I'm using two number 12s, right? So I'm taking two number 12s off of that. Number one, I got to make sure that I can put two conductors under the same lug. And then if I am supplying, I don't know, say it's two conductors, they're both rated 20 amps, so I'm protecting them both at 20 amps. From a short circuit perspective, from an overload perspective, Nick, you got it right. I think you're barking up this same tree, is that if I have a 20 amp circuit and I'm pulling, I don't know, 12 amps on each branch circuit, add them up, 24 amps, I'm going to trip the breaker. So the breaker is going to trip from an overload perspective at a lower value. You're not going to be able to put as much current on. You're not going to be able to put, if it's a continuous load, you're not going to be able to put 80% of 20 amps on each, because you're going to trip the circuit breaker. Now, if that's not a concern, and your circuit breaker will permit you to put two conductors under the same lug, I'm going to take a look at not the brochure. That's the AFCIs. As long as you're not double lugging, maybe only in parallel. Yeah, I'm Harvey, quick lag, residential breakers. So I'm just going to take a look. All right, so let's take a look at what it says on a single pole. I'm just looking at our quick lag residential circuit breakers, and I'm looking for the lug information. Well, but what they're saying, Harvey, is these two would be in parallel. So I'd have two conductors under the same lug. So there's the continuous current ratings on off modular. I'm just trying to see if there's anything in here that tells me how many conductors I can have under the same lug. And I'm not seeing the termination information. Not seeing it. Let's check mechanical interlock, padlock, mechanical interlock, important safety instructions, handle ties, filler plates, open and new. I have to go to a meeting, but big thank you for your time and answers. All right, Santiago, thanks for joining in, buddy. And remember, at that meeting, just say no. It's 4 o'clock. I got about 10 more minutes, and then I got to go. 4 o'clock. Got to make sure I don't have a meeting. Where is my Friday? Nope. Just Q&A Friday. All right, so I'm not seeing what the lug capabilities are on these breakers, on how many conductors I can put under a lug, but that, and this is just a quick look on this. I'm not getting my I'm just doing this is what happens when you're live and you're just flying by the seat of your pants. Oh, technical data sheets. Let's try this. Open in a new. So I'm looking at the BRX. There we go. Number of poles to wire, number 14 to 2 watt. No, it doesn't say I can put more than one conductor under these lugs. So I would say you got to look at the manufacturer and see, can I do that? I would argue if there are 2 branch circuits under the same lug, you're going to protect them both from short circuit. If the lug permits you to put 2 conductors under there, then you're good there. Overload, you're going to restrict the amount of current you can pull over that conductor because now you're additive. Remember, and those are the only things I can think of. I can't think of anything in the National Electrical Code. At least I can't find it right now, but I will be looking. And I'm sure if there's anybody who's watching this, they're going to say, what were you thinking, Tom? You can't do that. But I can't find anything that says, nah. So, all right. Additional information, knowledge. I'm just looking through. I'm not very coordinated today. I just did not want to go the entire week. I didn't do a Tech Tuesday. I didn't do a Tech Thursday. We are heavily involved in code panel meetings, task group meetings. I missed the panel 2 meeting today. It is what it is. And we can only do what we can do. And there's only so many hours in the day. Stay tuned for some Mavic Air. Stay tuned for some drone footage. I'm looking forward to sharing some footage from that with all of you as I learn how to fly a drone. And I'm probably going to have some input on how to leverage those types of technologies to increase safety. And if you have opinions on that, I'd love to hear them and share them. Please share your experience with using those type of technologies on job sites. And make that happen. So it's 4:03, and this is a short session today. Thanks for watching. Hopefully I answered a few of your questions and shared some information. Yes, Steve, I just picked this up yesterday, and I would have loved to have brought it up to Michigan. So I just picked it up yesterday or Wednesday. I saw it sitting on Dan Carnevale's desk, and I'm like, you got a drone? And he's like, hey, you want to borrow it? Go ahead, see what you can do with it. So and yesterday, I said that was Wednesday. I picked it up Thursday, which was yesterday, was the first time I ever took it up. And I flew it around the house here. And I'm going to try it again this afternoon. I want to get more familiar with it. And I think I'm going to take this out to Denver, Colorado with me. I'm going out there. I'm presenting in Denver this next week on at the Independent Electrical Contractors IEC convention. I'm presenting on leveraging communications, leveraging remote capabilities in electrical safety. So maybe after that we'll do a session, but online. No, I don't think I'll get into drone racing. I don't know about that, but I did get this thing to follow me around the yard. So it has a capability that you can have it track you if you are like walking around, or if you're, and it avoids obstacles, the whole bit. So I'm learning, and I am going to, and you know me, I'm going to relate it somehow to safety, but then we're going to have some fun too. So, all right, everybody, I'm going to drop off. Nihad, if you want to give me a call, please do so. You know, we can do it through Facebook or however you want to do it. So give me a call and let's chat. All right, I'm going to drop off now. And remember, take care, stay safe. Please, whatever you do, stay healthy. You deserve it for yourself, your family, and me. I need you around, because together we're going to increase safety in our electrical industry. And if you're watching this, you care about safety in our industry like I do, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate that. So thanks for watching. Hit the thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. See you next week. Tuesday, IAEI News Live. All right, everybody, take care. Stay safe. Thanks.